All right, so this is going to be a little bit of a different video for today. It's not quite a Let's Talk, but it is kind of a Let's Talk. We're going to go just outside of everything since we are at the end of the year and there's not too much in the way of game news happening. We're going to go into just this like thought bubble of a video where it's, do players actually influence game developers? And we're going to look into a couple different pieces of information and, check out to see what we can actually gather if our player voice actually does matter. There is player choice awards, and there's like Jeff Keighley has the players voice or players vote or whatever the case may be for the game awards and all that stuff. And there is award shows dedicated directly just for players choice. But what I'm wondering in this video is, do sales, social media, and word of mouth all contribute to the factor of whether or not a game does well, or if there's changes that gets made, or DLC patch updates, all that, etc. So let's start off with the influence on game developers with social media. Callisto Protocol. Some people love this game, some people hate it. Some people are just still looking for Dead Space to come out. And yeah, I'm in the boat where I actually kind of enjoyed Callisto Protocol for what it was. I didn't mind it. By the end of it, I definitely could tell the last three chapters were being reused assets and everything. But social media kind of went off on this game, and I feel like it wasn't quite rightfully so that they went off on it. There was definitely a lot of stuff. Like 2 hours ago, they just put out a video. They're still working on this. They're still working to make the game better. So there was a lot of fan feedback in the way of like how animations were running and how certain things like your dodge moves and all that stuff were in the game. And in all honesty, the developers, they've been hearing that. They have been hearing everything that everybody's saying, but there's only so much you can work on at one time. But there has been a major update to where the animations go a lot quicker. So now when you're at a boss fight, it doesn't it's not so hard as nails to try and reload a gun or switch your weapons and all that stuff. And also the photo mode and everything that everybody's been playing around with too. It's actually really cool seeing all these different shots and everything. So again, there is some good, some bad when it comes to social media, as there always is. It's just social media. So does this influence the game developers and the way that they approach their aspects of the game? Absolutely. There is actually a full-on like team dedicated to just checking social media. I don't know if it's daily or whatever, but because every development studio has something different. But I know that Callisto, because they're not like this super huge team. They're a good sized team, but they are definitely like checking out different stuff that people are posting up. And when they see screenshots like this where it's like, oh, okay, the game is working. Like there's some really weird ass monsters, attacking the players the way that we expect them to be attacking. And we're not seeing like overwhelming of like, okay, I just glitched through a wall and I can't make it to the end of the level. That means that they did something right. And again, right here too, listening to your feedback, working hard to further optimize PC performance. And yes, that was a thing with the PC version of it. There was, I guess there was some script coding or something that was just like a little bit off from what they needed to be able to optimize it. So they have been working on all that stuff. The cool thing is, they release a PC updates to further improve PSO caching and further reduce any stuttering issues. So maybe some people, and that's where you can also end up seeing trophies don't sync on PS4. Several of you have been asking, confirmed PS4 is now synced via PSN. Thanks. Okay. Again, and this is the stuff when they are coming in and start talking to the fan base and the public at large like this. It's a very good sign that yes, your player influence is actually having something to do with the game developers. They're hearing you, and this, you might not have all your updates happen in one update right when you say it, but they are at least seeing it. If there's enough people that end up saying the same thing is wrong, they will end up going in and being like, okay, so this is a little more higher priority problem with this. Like the animation timing was a big one, and now like the first major update, boom, we have animation time addressed, because there's enough people being like, okay, this is tough as nails trying to switch weapons and everything. Can we get it a little bit quicker? That happened. So again, like Callisto Protocol is a perfect example of where social media, it can definitely influence what ends up happening. And also you'll end up seeing sometimes they're like, okay, what about this type of DLC? Would you guys want to see this? So the Elden Ring DLC, this is something that was in the works, but it could have been easily cut also. And there was enough people who are like, oh yeah, Coliseum, that's actually pretty cool. So they're like, okay, we need to actually do this. And then of course they also did a hot patch fix, which this hot patch fix, when they do like 108s, this is also from, a bunch of fan feedback of like, okay, there's 10% of all the players are having a problem with this aspect of the game or whatever. That will end up going into the hot patch fix. Sooner or later they'll end up having a patch update for it, because there's enough people complaining about it. Another thing that you can also kind of put into this too is modding. Like if they see something's getting modded a lot, then sometimes the stuff that gets modded gets brought down to console level, because consoles don't do mods. And that's actually something where that's another spot where fans can influence, the direction on where the developers take, the game developments. So another aspect of player influence on game development is sales wise. So the first week of sales, something that we know just from listening to developers talk on podcasts and everything, is that the first week of sales is very crucial, because it lets so you have your publishers and you have your game developers. So the parent company is actually this company here. I don't even want to attempt to say it because I'm going to say it wrong. But since they own From Software, they greenlight the funding that goes into the next From Software project. So like Armored Core got greenlit, and then that money goes down to From Software, Miyazaki or Yamamura. They can take that funding and put it wherever they need to in the different studios, departments, whatnot. If they need to hire voice acting, if they need to hire motion capture, if they need to hire people that know how to upgrade the game engine in whichever way, that's where this, the sales figures that you would end up having. Again, Square Enix is another one. Like Square Enix actually has different studios. I do believe they are actually their own publisher though. Yes, they are their own publisher. So, that's where Square Enix definitely holds the cash in pocket themselves. And it's like, okay, so Final Fantasy Crisis Core sells really well. Okay, so that's more that's more go ahead to make another Final Fantasy product. Final Fantasy 16 is very, very highly sought after. Let's make another Final Fantasy. Forspoken maybe doesn't do as well. So if you have this gameplay here that maybe doesn't do quite as well for them, they might not continue with Forspoken. This might be just a one and done because of that. And that happens a lot, in game development. Player influence of, of you voting with your wallet, as a lot of people like to say. Yes, 100%. If something sells well, even if it's a really trashy game, like if the first week of sales for Forspoken after this demo dropped, and this is why I want to bring up Forspoken and something like High on Life also. Like High on Life did really well. It's probably going to have more stuff being done with the IP or the license for it. Forspoken is a brand new IP, a brand new license. If Square doesn't make return on investment on this, which is your first week of sales really, then they're probably not going to even look at this game anymore. They're just going to be like, okay, that was a cool little one-off project. Maybe people don't like kind of more of a shooter style Square Enix game anymore or whatever. That the higher ups at Square are going to be saying that, while the developers are like, but we could just try another thing. The reason why Strains of Paradise got so many updates to that one is because yes, it sold pretty decently. I don't know the actual numbers, but I do know they made return on investment basically with Strains of Paradise. I didn't like it so much. I didn't care for it. But the sales figures were there enough for them to make a couple DLC packs. Are they going to be doing much more after that? Who knows? It depends on if it keeps selling, but basically they made enough money to be able to make the DLCs. That's cool. And that's one of the other things too. you have voice acting in those DLCs. That voice acting was recorded back when the main game was also being recorded and everything. It's not like they bring them back in. Sometimes they do, but I'm pretty sure the main voice acting for that was already recorded. They had the plan out of like, okay, this is going to be a DLC, this is going to be DLC, just because they know scheduling wise it's going to take us 3-4 years to make this part, and then the next year afterwards we'll make this, the next year after that we'll make that, like a 5-year cycle or something. And then they get enough funding to make the main game. If that does really well, then they have enough funding to make the next thing. If that sells really well, they got enough to make that last part. When it comes to Forspoken, again, if it sells really well in the first week, we'll probably see some DLC for it. Will they continue the license? Who knows? It all depends on, like, maybe they might want to do FF16. They might want to do a couple expansion packs for that or something. Who knows? It really comes down to, and this is the thing too, like when you hear of leaks and everything on this stuff, sometimes the sales wise can influence those leaks and the word of mouth, which that's actually the next thing that I was going to get into on the list of stuff to talk about. But the word of mouth going around about something being in development, that can also influence whether or not something is pushed to. Let's put this back up again. So the word of mouth can actually push stuff being put into development again. Also, word of mouth going around that High on Life is doing really good. Then okay, maybe we do end up seeing some DLC because the word of mouth is good and people have their attention is on the product. Another big one is like Mass Effect or like Bloodborne or something. Sony hears you about your Bloodborne, please. They absolutely know it. They see it on social media and everything. They know that people really want a Bloodborne remaster or PC port or something happening of it. The thing is though, they need a development studio. They need the funding. They need all the stars to align to actually make that product happen. That's like Demon's Souls. The reason why that happened is because they had a brand new system that they're trying to sell. Nostalgia sells very well, and it's a Souls game. So, and Bluepoint is known for doing some good work and everything. Stars aligned for that, for Demon Souls remastered to end up happening. All right, so next up, I wanted to talk about like demos and trials and like vertical slices and the difference between all these different early access stuff that we can get hands on with. So there is a couple different like versions of getting hands-on early access onto games and developments, and 100%, like if a developer has something that they're putting out there of a beta or a demo or something, depend on like what type of hands-on thing it is, of a hands-on model it is, because you have like a closed alpha, you have closed alpha, closed beta, you have a demo, you have a time trial, you have media early access and everything. So a demo or a time trial. So a demo is probably something that could either be very early, or if it's like a time trial, like what you're seeing here with Need for Speed, this is the full-on game that I download, but I only have access to it for like 10 hours. Another one that ended up happening. Okay, so another type of thing is a beta or demo, and so betas and demos are definitely a different thing than a early access trial. So early access trial is finished game. The game is already uploaded to the network. It's finished. They're working on maybe a day one patch or something. You have 5 days early access to it. Media code is very similar to that also, where it's like you're playing it before a day one patch. So that's where reviews can be very skewed. If you don't have the day one patch, there's probably going to be a lot of things that the developers haven't actually implemented into the game to actually, that they've been working on for the last months to 3 months. Like a day one patch is super critical at making sure that the game is as good as it can be on launch day. That's like the day one patch can fix up a lot of stuff that would normally just be super bad and wrong and everything, which is a good thing that a lot of the reviewers now are actually saying like this is before day one patch. But you also have stuff like this, what you're seeing here of Wolong, where it's it's an early version of the game, and this is just to like get the word out there of like, here's what we're working on, this is what it is. You can have hands on with it because we think this is mostly done of what we want it to be. And also, this is to test out like network connections to see if co-op and online works. Like Street Fighter 6, when they just dropped that beta, it's an online beta for a reason. It's to test the online servers and everything, but also they are testing to make sure that, okay, are some of the core roster pretty well balanced out, because then that can influence the rest of the roster that you're playing as. But then also, even in a game like Wo Long here, is like, okay, is there gonna be one build that's overpowered and everybody's just gonna be like, okay, that's the meta build, just use this to easily beat the game with. And again, that's player influence right there too. Just you playing it, they're getting data on how many times did people get kills with this weapon. Did the main boss fight get killed by this, that, or the other thing? That's all player influence also. So again, yes, as players, we do have a lot of influence on the game. That being said, one of the main things that you really don't want to do as players is piss off the developers, because they are the ones that are responsible for making the experience better for you. And if you're going online just being kind of a shithead of just being like, yeah, you suck, and what the hell, what why is this like this and this and that, and especially like the death threats and all that stuff, like it's ridiculous that people do that stuff. But all you're doing is, the thing that you are trying to love so much, you're just making the people not want to work on it anymore, and just move on to the next project at that point. The Last of Us Part 2 had that majorly with, people were complaining at the actor or the the actors that were in the mocap and everything for plot points happening. It's just like, they're just doing their job. They didn't write the story. They're acting it out. Somebody else wrote the story. So yes, again, multiple instances here. I think what we're actually coming up with is, yes, as players, we have a large voice and we do have a lot of influence on where the game goes, what the game is, what the game does. And that's something that I think we shouldn't take for granted. I think that we should definitely, we should all be learning even more about game development, especially if you want to go online and talk about game development. You should be learning everything that you can about it and how everything works. Not just like I'm pretty sure this is how it works. No, you should actually figure out exactly how it works, because all that can do is just make the experience of what you want the game to be that much better if you know how to convey that to the developers in the proper ways. Which is the reason why I try and do videos on my channel also, just to try and convey, I think if you did this, it might work out a little bit better. And I've had a lot of people that are just like, are you crazy? But then once the update comes out, or once the game gets made, then it's like, oh yeah, this is kind of cool. It's like, yes, this is what I was saying months ago. But yeah, again, to go back to the whole thing of like early access codes, that's another thing where it's like, it almost, like, early access for games is almost like a mixture of like the vertical slice. Well, not even the vertical slice. It's like the early build of a game that is almost a vertical slice, but also at the same time it's the word of mouth, because you're getting to see the game, and your favorite influencer, so whether it be a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer, or maybe somebody on social media or whatever, when they are saying like, this is my experience with the thing, that is influencing. It's word of mouth. So again, word of mouth goes a long ways too. It can make or break a game by just bad word of mouth. Like Cyberpunk, for some people it ran just fine. Street Fighter also, is another example of like word of mouth. Not everybody likes Street Fighter 5. Word of mouth is showing that Street Fighter 6 is doing really well. Cyberpunk, some people had a really good experience, some people didn't. Again, word of mouth though made it so everybody really just hated that, Cyberpunk. And Callisto Protocol the same way. Some people actually liked it. There's some people that didn't. It's just personal opinion, but that personal opinion has a lot of weight when you are influencer of sorts for games. And that's one of those things where I definitely have seen the influence from developers of being like, well, I guess people didn't really like this aspect, so maybe we'll change that for the next one. And sometimes it's just that vocal minority that ends up, you know, making a change happen for a game, and the majority of player base don't like it, and then the developers are like, well, what the hell? What we were hearing from fan feedback was, you guys didn't like this, but now you're complaining that it's not there. So I've also seen that happen too, which is like, oof, it's just one of those things. I think my biggest thing that I could end up saying for everyone is, instead of keeping tabs on like IGNs and Game Informers and, like VGC and what's the other ones? All these publications that do news. Keep an eye on the developers themselves. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video, for the Let's Talk. I'll definitely wrap this up here. I've been talking for a while about all this stuff. Go and like and share and subscribe and all that stuff over on the YouTube channel with all the different videos if you find anything useful or that you like in the videos. Yeah, you can go check out the Twitch channel also, twitch.tv/Warwolf. Follow over there. You can see when I go live, or whatever. And yeah, check out all the stream replays too on both the different channels. And yeah, that's gonna do it. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by, and as always, I will see you next time.